Hey, John, did you finally play that Phoenix Wright game I sent you, like, forever ago?
Did I?
I'm here for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, so sometimes I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? Right?
Hold on, was someone giving you shit about that sort of thing?
I don't know, it's just like, I'm always, like, you guys always give me shit about playing obscure crap that nobody cares about. And I do play a lot of obscure crap that nobody cares about, but I play it for a reason. It's because it's fucking awesome. And Ace Attorney's, like, the best example of that, so yeah.
From the times I shared my thoughts on certain games in the series, from what I wouldn't really call the Ace Attorney series obscure.
Well, it's not so much obscure, like not anymore. Like when it first started out, it was, but this is like Ace Attorney is my favorite video game series ever, and it's kind of like a very good description of the type of games I generally like in general, which is stuff that's not really like anything else. Is the best way to put it.
You're really more of a fan of the out of the ordinary, breaking the chains of innovation
Yeah,
sort of thing.
if a game does something that no other game has ever done before, that's something I really appreciate. Is a good way to put it. So
There have been plenty of other games and visual novels, sort of spiel, but the Ace Attorney series was just one that you happened to really find enjoyment out of that you didn't get from. Have you played any other visual novel games before being introduced to Ace Attorney?
no,
Okay,
basically no.
so Ace Attorney was your first, and that's all that matters.
Well, no, 999 was pretty good, but yeah, it's just awesome. So yeah, I got John to play pretty much all of the Ace Attorney games. He's still on investigations, but
So let's break this down for a second. First off, as you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, this is a retrospective, and just like previous retrospectives, spoilers are abounding here because we're pretty much discussing all of the games. So if you haven't played any of the Ace Attorney games or you plan on to, stop now because the Ace Attorney series are games you play for the story. And if we're here spoiling that for you for the first time, then there's no point in playing the games.
you can get the first three, which are the most important, on pretty much everything, honestly.
Yeah.
On WiiWare, on the DS, on your fuck it. So I'd recommend at least playing the first one, because if you like that, then you'll like the rest of them. Is a good way to put it.
So why don't we start things off with how were you introduced to the series?
Okay, well, hold on. The games came out the DS. Well, the games originally came out in Japan on the Game Boy Advance. I think it was like 2001, 2002, 2004.
I want to say 2003.
Yeah. We got the U.S. got Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney in 2005 with the DS remake. I got it around then because at the time I discovered Law and Order, and that was the only show I would watch on TV ever. Like I'd spend like hours watching the marathons on USA and TNT because that's what they'll show to fill up space. And so my uncle noticed that and said, he likes lawyer stuff. I'll get him this video game about a lawyer. And so I looked at the box and it said Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. I'm like, what? This is a video game about a lawyer? Huh? And so I just sort of like stared at it for a second and played Partners in Time instead. But when I realized that Partners in Time kind of blows, I tried out Phoenix Wright and then I just sort of got sucked in instantly. And ever since then, I've basically been a very, very crazily obsessed fanboy. John got introduced to it because I basically shoved the game in his face and said,
Well, the
"Play
game
this."
anyway. In terms of the franchise as a whole, I've been familiar with Ace Attorney since 2006. The very first thing I ever saw of Ace Attorney was a Flash parody. I
You saw
think it
Phoenix
was
Wrong?
Phoenix Wrong. Yeah.
Oh man, I love those things.
I don't know what compelled me to watch it. I have no. It might have been a link a friend sent to me or something like that. He might have been an Ace Attorney fan, but I watched it and that's how I was introduced. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. Everything was just taken out of context. They were just using sprites to reanimate old gags from different sources. But that was when I was technically introduced to the Ace Attorney series. And it wouldn't be until we did the movie commentary that I finally learned about what's going on in this place. Who's Phoenix Wright? Who's Mia? Who's Maya? Who's Miles Edgeworth? All that shit. And finally, from the goodness of his black heart, Ted gifted me with the first Phoenix Wright game. I got it in the mail, and I used it as a doorstop.
Oh, not even a coaster.
No, who uses coasters? I don't use coasters. But so that was when was that? That was around.
That was sometime last fall, like October.
Yeah, sometime around there. I was planning on going to Pittsburgh for New Year's. I do that for like almost every New Year's too. I want to see a few friends of mine in Pittsburgh, and one of the things I love to do on the train ride, which is about 7 hours, is to catch up on the backlog. Usually in my handheld department. So I figured, okay, I got 7 hours to kill going front and back from Pittsburgh. I might as well start playing Phoenix, right? And that's when I did it. I finally picked up the game. I put it in the slot, and that's it. Like the rest is history. It just kind of snowballed after that. I really liked the sense of humor the series had. It's not the funniest thing I've ever experienced, but I thought it was quirky. The soundtrack was especially catchy.
Oh man, love.
Yeah, and I'll even say now. Hold your load in for a second there, Ted. I will still say that even after this point in time, because the only game I haven't fully completed was Investigations at this point. The first game is still my favorite soundtrack in the series.
Yeah, that's very true. Have you
Yeah.
taken the time to listen to the orchestral albums?
Most of it, yes.
Most of it, okay. There's a surprisingly large amount of official stuff for Ace Attorney, considering that it's such a small. Well, not really small, but it's pretty much the definition of a cult classic at this point. But considering like relative to the size of the fan base of things like Street Fighter or Mega Man, I'm surprised that Capcom shelled out the money to do five different orchestral albums, and a jazz album, for Phoenix Wright. Although the music is spectacular, so.
Yes, and it's kind of important given the sort of game it is, where you're not like there's no flashy combat system. There's none of that. It's a visual novel. You're reading a lot of text. There's a lot of pictures, and you need to have a good soundtrack at that, to make sure you don't get bored in an auditory sense.
I think the most important thing about all of the game's soundtrack is that it's very good at fitting the tone of the scene. Like as soon as you hear the first beats of the cornered theme, it's just like that shit's about to get real and stuff like that. The fact that it's all very catchy and one of the most memorable. For me, it's the first Phoenix Wright soundtrack is one of my favorite game soundtracks of all. Actually, no, I'm going to scratch that. Is my favorite game soundtrack of all time. Period.
Really?
Yeah, really. Then again, I'm also more attached to it because I've been playing it for, almost 5 years. No, I mean 10, almost 10 years. God damn it.
You're old.
Well, Ryan, I know you. Do you have any sort of experience with Ace Attorney? Have you?
I think you said you played the first one, right?
Little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit of the first one, but that's pretty much that's where your experience begins and ends, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen a lot of parody stuff online, but that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, shall we begin with the first game?
Sure. The first game stars Phoenix Wright, who is not an Ace Attorney. He actually kind of sucks at the beginning. Like a lot.
He did go to Ivy League, I believe.
No, it's just called Ivy University. That's
Ivy University.
It's just
the point is he has studied.
He got an art degree.
Hey, close enough. Whatever. He spent a lot of money. That's the point.
Yeah, but what part of the first game was the part that really drew you in? Because I think for me, the part where I was really first got really hooked was when Mia died. Because, again, when I was playing the game, you can beat the first case in like an hour. So I was like, okay, this is pretty good, better than I was expecting. I liked Mia, I liked Phoenix. So I go and I start the second case, and then Mia dies, and I just screaming at the screen like, what? No, you don't. No, game. Why? So that was really the fact that they decided to kill off such a major character within like the first hour was really what drew me into the first game the first time I played it. But then again, you watched the movie first, so you saw that plot twist coming.
I watched it was watching the first movie that kind of helped in a sense, because I remember you telling me when we were watching the commentary, or we're doing the commentary for the movie, that the movie abridges a few things. It combines aspects for the sake of making it like a 2-hour film. So I knew what to expect in certain aspects, but there were still things I wanted to find. Because I actually did legitimately enjoy the Ace Attorney film. There are some really goddamn ridiculous moments in the film, but it's a movie based off a video game. I can cut a slack for that sort of shit. But I wanted to find out how the game told its story. I wanted to see what it happens here and there. What's the context of this situation and that. And yeah, it was around the same time, Mia's death, that made me want to. Okay, I have to find the asshole who did this, because I liked Mia in certain aspects. That we'll get along that as we go along the games. But at that time, I wanted to really find Mia's murderer, and that was enough to draw me in. And then later on, the game just keeps getting more intricate with its plot. And why is it always murder?
Why is it always murder? Because murder is sexy. That's why. Well, not. Well, it's just. I don't know. I think it's just to add tension. I think.
Yeah.
Because they established this in the third game, but the punishment for murder is execution. Like the defendant will die if you don't get them not guilty. Other stuff like like theft or whatever is a lesser sentence, so they'll just go to jail. So it's more the defendant's life's on the line if you in the trials. So it's just to add stakes, I think. Also, it's a lot easier to write a murder mystery than it is to write anything else.
A drug bust, trafficking.
Yeah. Well, also I think there's content stuff for like drugs. Well, kind of. They sort of. I don't know. They allude to it at points, but yeah. Like it's a lot harder to write like a kidnapping plot or like a thievery plot or whatever than just a straight up murder mystery. So I guess that's just why the writers always sort of delve to that.
The first game introduces us to pretty much all the mainstay characters for the rest of the series, excluding ones that are exclusive to that one particular game. So, Phoenix Wright, we have Mia, who, despite dying in the second case, still remains with us because she's a spirit medium. Well, she's part of the Fae clan.
Yeah, well, Maya's a spirit medium. I don't. Yeah. They never actually ever say whether or not Mia could call spirits herself. They leave that. They never answer that. Although I guess she just doesn't care about that sort of thing.
Well, I'd imagine she had some form of training.
Yeah, some, but they never really state how powerful her powers would have been. So it's just like we don't know how good she would have been at it anyway. Is more the thing. But yeah, there's Phoenix, Mia, Maya, Edgeworth, and Gumshoe. Who poor Gumshoe, man. I love Gumshoe and the way that I love the way he is. He's one of my favorite characters in the first 3 games. The way that he's treated after that just makes me want to punch things.
He goes from a goofy, big oaf sort of detective to and how the hell did this guy get this job in the first place? Sort of moron.
Yeah.
By investigations.
Yeah, we'll talk more when we get to that game. I also am kind of pissed that he's not even in Dual Destinies at all, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah.
The Steel Samurai case is actually just not in the movie at all. Or, well, no, the villain's there for like 5 seconds, but... So that was probably like the first like bit of new storyline that you saw when you were playing through the game. So what did you think of that case in particular?
The Steel Samurai case was... There are certain things that I did notice when I was like doing the investigation and stuff like that. Because like the very first thing I noticed when you went into the back lot where the house was at was that the fence was crooked. I was like, okay, why is that crooked? So I examined it, but it's not letting me do anything with it. He just knows that it's crooked, and that's it. He just writes it off as not being unrelated. And then lo and behold, later on, it becomes one of the determining factors of what happens to the guy that died. And I was like, okay. Well, I'm glad to see my hunches were correct, and that kind of makes you feel good when things go off your hunches. But it was the third case is what introduced me to one particular character. I just can't stand. I hate Wendy Oldbag. I don't like her. Justice for All did it worse, but yeah. It was this game that introduced her.
She has more depth to her, I think, because she's annoying still, but she does have like an acceptable range of emotions. Like she's sad, and she's sad when she finally realizes that okay, this guy's gone. She only fangirls over edgy, momentarily. She's not. She's flanderized in later games.
Yeah, and it's just and said Flanderization it just really makes me hate her more. In the first game, I can write her off as okay. She's stuck up, and she has an enormous stick up her ass. I think they in the process of removing said stick from ass by the end of the case, and they jam it up back there and they turn up the bitch dial by like 15. Oh, I get it. She's annoying. She's an old lady. I get it. Can we move on, please?
Are you still on case 2 of investigations?
I'm barely in the case 2 investigation, so I don't know.
Well, then you haven't gotten to case 3 and 5 of investigations. She comes back.
I know Wendy Obag is in investigations.
Oh, okay. Well, she's probably at her worst there, so look forward to that.
Is that my investigations copy on fire? How did that happen?
You mentioned the investigating random stuff. How often did you just investigate everything in the background of every room?
All of the damn time. I checked everything. It's what I do in all the original the original trilogy. I check every fucking thing I can because you never know. It might be something crucial to the case in ways you may not have known. I'm not that kind of guy that looks at that sort of detail when it comes to certain things because in the beginning around the third case, you can check the costume of where the body was found, and Wright mentioned something about there's no blood. And I didn't really think about any of that. I just said that, okay, the costume probably absorbed it. And no, it just means the body was moved. And I was like, oh, shit. I didn't. I don't think 2 steps ahead when it comes to detectives or mysteries.
It's not just that stuff, but it's also all the little details around the world that really bring me into it. It's just every single time you investigate a ladder that's in the background of the scene, Phoenix and Maya will always argue about whether it's called a ladder or a step ladder. And that happens every single time in all the games whenever you investigate them. And if you investigate the tree in the office, you'll find out that its name is Charlie. And then it stays the same throughout the entire thing. And it's just, there's so much consistency and detail put into the game to stuff that you might not even notice until your 3rd or 4th playthrough if you try to go out of your way to just see every line of dialogue. Because, I was playing, I think it was Trials and Tribulations. I did that just a couple months ago, and there were lines of dialogue that I hadn't seen before, because I went out of my way to try to examine everything. And I do mean everything. Although, unfortunately, that does mean that every time you get to a new witness, you are spending a good 10 minutes presenting every piece of evidence to them.
The gameplay aspects is something that I do want to get into. Before that, though, what's your opinion on, say, Maya? Because I didn't think nothing much of her when we're first introduced to her. She's caught up in the murder of her sister and stuff like that. There are times where she's always in a fucking perilous situation in every game.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't miss her after Trials and Tribulations ended. Because there were talks of when we moved to Apollo Justice, we pretty much had Trucy fill in the role. And then in Dual Destinies, we have Athena, and we still have Trucy, but Maya's nowhere to be seen. I didn't miss her because she's the perky girl that's not very. She's borderline dumb.
She's really one of the most complex characters in the series if you look into her dialogue, and stuff. Because it's her peppiness is really is implied to really just be a lot of a facade, just to sort of try to make everyone else feel better. Because she goes through a lot of shit. Her mom is missing for the majority of the original trilogy. Her sister is dead. Her in the second game, her aunt tries to have her killed. She's always caught up in a lot of stuff. So the
darkness, no parents.
She's so really you get the sense that she's really just putting on a happy face in order to make sure that nobody worries about her. And if you look at a lot of her dialogue like that, her character really starts to become a lot more complex in that way. And she's not as dumb as she really seems. Like, she's just, a lot of the stuff that she says is just really just trying to mess with Phoenix. Because, that's just sort of what she does.
I never took it as that. What you're saying is pretty much character development or interpretation by reading in between the lines. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but there's a lot of, you can do a lot of that in Phoenix, right? Which is part of the reason why I think it's such a well-written series, is that you can just sort of take it as it is, and it's still a fun, enjoyable ride. But you can look deeper into it and see stuff that's hidden beneath the surface. So it's just, I like that. It's not like some sort of pretentious thing where you have to do like hours of understanding symbol. You don't have to do that shit to enjoy Ace Attorney. But there is stuff there if you want to look deeper into it, which is part of why I like the story so much.
It's only after the first game though I really just didn't, because to me, I guess I just wasn't interpreting it as well as you were. To me, it was just always the same sort of thing in all the games. It's like, she's peppy. I get that. She has a bottomless stomach. Always wanted to go to a burger shop. She's there to bring Phoenix up when he's feeling down on those occasions and argue about step ladders and shit like that. But when it came to when she was getting replaced in other characters, I didn't really miss her. That's pretty much all I could say.
My problem with Trucy and Kay from Investigations isn't necessarily that they replaced Maya, but it's just that they have the same personality, only with a stupid gimmick attached onto it. Because Trucy is the same sort of just peppiness like Maya, only she has magic panties, and Kay is basically the same peppiness like Maya, but she's obsessed with stealing things. It's just, I'd rather have the assistants have their own character, which is why I like Athena, because she's like, she's peppy, but she also bounces, she's also got like no filter and bounces around from emotion to emotion a lot, which makes her feel distinct from Maya. In a lot of ways, but
Trucy is definitely more, and we'll get to her when we get to Apollo Justice. But Trucy is definitely more intelligent.
Well, that's also because she's raised by Nick. So
yeah. What do you think of Miles Edgeworth? He has his own game, but this is his debut. So
I feel like Edgeworth is definitely the character with the clearest. Well, actually, Phoenix has the clearest overarching. Phoenix's character arc extends over the first 3 games, but Edgeworth is definitely one of the most popular characters in the series for a reason. I feel like that his character development was handled really well done. It's really funny to take a dialogue between him and Phoenix out of context, because it's just hilarious. It's just like, you make me, ever since you've came back, I've been having certain feelings. I was ready to hug it out with him, but it's just, people ship them for a reason is all I'm gonna say about that. But I really do like Edgeworth, if only because he and Phoenix do make really great rivals. I feel like he's easily my favorite prosecutor out of all of them.
I would agree, yes.
If only because Francisca got Von Karma was definitely a better villain. Was great as a villain, but just out of all the normal prosecutors, Francisca gets on my nerves every once in a while, and Godo, we'll talk about Godo when we get to Godo, and I don't want to. Clavayer just bugs me, but we'll get to him when we
I'm sensing a lot of shit when we get to Apollo Justice.
Oh God, I hate Apollo Justice so much.
But I guess that just leaves Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix. I love Phoenix, except for in Apollo Justice, where he's a gigantic fucking douchebag.
We can't get away from it.
It's in the first 3 games. Not only does he have you can really see sort of the flow as he becomes like this really, really inexperienced newbie to competent attorney by the end of Trials and Tribulations. But he's just got the best lines in the entire goddamn game. Like his inner monologue is probably the funniest thing in the entire series for me.
And I really do feel for the guy. Like I remember one line it was like, "Why is it lately all I want to do is cry?"
I think my favorite Edgeworth line is just like, "Is there a kick me sign placed on the defendant's bench?" I don't know what it is necessarily about him, but I find it's really easy to find myself to connect with Phoenix. In a lot of ways, I'm just not really sure what about his writing that makes it so easy to do that, though.
I think I think you nailed it in earlier. If there's one thing that the original trilogy does show well, because I definitely noticed it when I played the game, and I'm the Phoenix Wright noob, but you get that sense of development with Nick. You see him start so small, and then by the end of Trials and Tribulation, he's almost a completely different person. To an extent, not completely different.
Well,
I should rephrase
he's
that.
definitely a lot more. He's definitely grown. Is
Yes.
the most important thing. Which is part of why I love the fourth case of Justice for All so much, because that's really where he gets the most character development. Really, Trials and Tribulations is the only game in the series where Phoenix is the main central point. It's Edgeworth in the first game and Maya in the third, for the most part.
The first game, I think it does a good enough job introducing you to how the series works. I think the cases are the shortest in the series, except for the exclusive fifth case. It was all right. It's ladies and gentlemen. I know that cases nowadays in the Ace Attorney series are pretty fucking long as it is. That's par for the course. They're story driven games and stuff like that. But the Ace Attorney games, the first one, the very first one, like the first case take you about an hour, even if you're a noob. The second case, 2-3 tops, and that applies to like the third case, and the fourth case it goes about 4. The fifth case, the exclusive one on the Nintendo DS,
it's half the game.
It's half of the fucking game. It takes like 8 to 10 hours. Like Jesus, this goes on forever. But at the same time, it kept me interested the entire way. I will give it that. There's so much going on here, but little did I know that 8 hours for a case is par for the course for the rest of the fucking series. Because after the first game, almost all the other cases are about that long.
I think they're at their longest in Dual Destinies, I think, because my completion time at that was like 30 hours or something like that.
I didn't even bother looking at the completion time. Yeah, but Justice for All especially is long.
Yeah,
it feels long.
Justice for All feels long. It's not necessarily. Yeah. That's mostly case 2 and 3 for Justice for All that feel long. But for the first game, I feel like the first game definitely has some of the best villains in the series, if only because of Von Karma and Gant.
Oh man, Gant.
I think Von Karma's headbanging animation is just so goddamn awesome. It's just, I think that has to be, him and Gant have the most satisfying breakdowns in the entire series. It's
I actually like Damon's breakdown more than
the lightning bolt one or the clapping one?
The clapping one. Because at that point I realized, okay, it's over.
He's applauding you for making it all the way through the game.
And he's losing conscious while he's doing so.
Smack, smack, smack.
And that fucking theme. You hear that? It's 8 hours. But it's a good theme, so I don't really care.
Yeah, the thing about Rise from the Ashes is that you can definitely tell what stuff was supposed to be new and what stuff wasn't, because the sprites for all the new characters are all nice and shiny, and Phoenix is still rocking his 32-bit GBA sprite.
Yeah.
Although that's at its worst in the flashback scene in Apollo Justice, because young Clavier has this like ridiculously overly designed costume, and then Phoenix is just the same as always, and it's just glaring.
It also has a hell of a lot more frames of animation.
What did you think about Rise from the Ashes' like touchscreen stuff, which is really only there because the DS was new at the time?
I get why it was implemented. The only thing I found bothersome to do was reconstructing the vase. Like, no, not reconstructing the vase. Tilting the vase so that the angle of it looks like the Blue Badger's head.
That's annoying.
Hated that. Because I didn't see it. I was like, what the fuck are these assholes seeing? That? Huh? What? And granted, that's kind of the joke. It's like, how did Emma see the Blue Badger? The Blue Badger wasn't conceptualized until like 2 years later. And, that's what she saw. But you gotta angle the vase in order to make sure you get that same image.
It took me like a half hour the first time I played the game.
I thought like Dusted for Fingerprints was pretty cool. Using it's like the first time you use the damn mic feature for anything, for any other DS game I ever played.
Dusting. I actually think that examining like evidence like in 3D was probably my favorite thing. If only because it's a subtle thing that doesn't really it's another chance to find more dialogue, which I always love doing.
Reminded me a lot of Resident Evil the classic Resident Evil series, because you did that all the time
Like you
when you were examining
looked
items.
at your stuff.
Like, yeah, you examine you look at an item and then you examine it from a different angle to see something you didn't see before.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't played
Yeah.
any of the classic Resident Evil games.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was intentional because they're both from Capcom.
Yeah, you're right. Rise from the Ashes is sort of an interesting thing because it's kind of messes. I feel like it makes Edgeworth's whole suicide thing in Justice for All make sense, except for the fact that the writing in Justice for All makes it seem like Rise from the Ashes didn't happen.
Yeah, because Edgeworth seemed to be in peace with himself by the end of the case, but
The re-release of Justice for All, they don't change the writing that said Edgeworth's last trial was his own in the DL6 thing.
yeah, it doesn't mention the SL9 case.
Like, I feel like it makes more sense. Like, at the end of the fourth case, Edgeworth seems to be, happy, relatively happy. He goes whoop with Gumshoe. And at the end of the fifth case, you see that he's really guilt tripped over, I feel like the fifth case actually sort of made it hit him like what the consequences of his sort of demon prosecuting was. Like, even though they established that he never really forged evidence, he still put a lot of innocent people in jail and stuff like that. So, I feel like it made more sense for that whole suicide plot point in Justice for All. It's just, I wish, they had to translate Justice for All second anyway, so I don't know why they just didn't fix that.
Okay, so before we move on, most annoying character?
Most annoying character from the first game?
Yeah.
Meekins.
Yes! You took the words out of my fucking mouth. And is it for the same reason I'm thinking of?
What's your reason?
Megaphone.
Megaphone? Oh. That sound effect is annoying, but it's more just I didn't find him endearing. Like, at all.
Yeah.
It's just, eh.
But I do like his quirky character design, but, man, it's that fucking megaphone. Just, why did I put headphones on? Before we move on to the Justice for All, I guess we just break down the gameplay. Like, the only thing I hate about this sort of gameplay is the clutter. Because in certain cases, especially after the first case you do in the beginning of the game, stretch out to about 2 days. In the first game, it can go up to 3 days because of the trial limit, the limitation system on how the trials go. Like, you only have 3 days to solve the case. Otherwise, what was the penalty? It was like, is it an automatic verdict?
Yeah, the automatic... The way the court system works, if I remember correctly, is that the trials that you actually compete in the game are like a sort of a preliminary trial, and those have a 3-day limit because of how much crime there had been.
Yeah.
If the defendant is found guilty, or if it passes 3 days, I think the defendant is brought to a higher court, where it takes longer and it's implied to be much tougher, so they won't won't tolerate Phoenix's bullshit there.
Yeah.
So it's implied that he loses and the defendant gets either arrested or executed or whatever.
Gotcha.
By the clutter, do you mean like having like 5 rows of evidence?
5 rows of evidence, and you're not exactly sure what's still relevant at this case at this point in time because of testimony. It's especially jarring when you're put on the spot. He's like, I have this piece of evidence right here that'll turn this case entirely upside down, and then you have to choose this one item in like the 5 rows of shit you've collected in like the 2 days you've been playing the game. What it is pretty much is that when you're not cross-examining testimony in the court, you're investigating on the outside, and anything that's deemed important to the case in hand gets added to your inventory, where you can use it to object to what a person's saying, or to prove that someone's lying, or just bring out a contradiction in general. But the thing is, like on the first 3 games, is that even when it seems like there's no relevance to the item whatsoever, you still hold it in your inventory.
Some cases have them filter out unnecessary evidence, like the fourth case in the first game does that, where it's just like, I'm not gonna need half this shit anymore, so a lot of it just leaves. But there is a lot of points where it's just like, if you're not sure what evidence is supposed to be used where, you're gonna just have to save scum and guess.
Yeah, and that's one thing I find myself doing a lot, actually, with save scumming. Try everything.
Well, that's the old adventure mode of doing things. Just try everything on everything.
Yeah, well, at the very least, the game does make it convenient to save scum, which is actually a problem I have with Professor Layton. Is that in Phoenix, right? You can save anywhere at any time. The process is really quick, and you can just LR select start to reset the game. So you can just you present evidence until all of your health runs out. You reset the game. You keep on doing that. It's tedious, but at least it goes by quick. In other games, where you have to like go through all these menus and wait for shit, and it's just annoying. It's just like if it's a necessary evil, at the very least they made it streamlined.
Assuming you save before you're put on the spot, because when you have to present something then and there, you can't pause the game.
Yeah, that is true. Except for in Dual Destinies.
Yeah, Dual Destinies, yeah. Dual Destiny does a lot of things, though, so we'll get to that when we get to Dual Destinies.
But that's usually when you're, like, in the middle of a dialogue scene in a trial. When you're, like, presenting stuff during testimony, you can save anywhere. So it's just, like, you can usually tell what, the game, if you press every statement, the game will usually make a pretty good, give you a pretty good hint that this is the statement that has the issue with it. So you can just save there. But you're right, it is a little bit annoying when you're not sure on that one on when they put you on the spot. I suppose it's really only really bad when you get to those cases with like a bajillion pieces of evidence, though.
It's to me the two things I don't like about when it comes. Well, I'm sure there's more. I can only think of two things anyway. Is when you have just a shitload of evidence in your inventory, and when the testimony is very fucking long and intricate. And there are some cases, like in the games, where just pressing nets you a penalty.
There's only two cases where I can. That's Mo and the what's his name, the tiger dude. Mo and Furio Tigre. That's
Furio Tigre.
Those are the only two instances where the pressing. Actually, I feel like the Tigre section handles that better, because you can press every individual statement in that one. It's just that if you ask to press further is when you'll get a penalty most of the time. It's just finding which one to press the most is that section's puzzle. The most section in Justice for All is just you can't press. Like, at all, except for the one section where you have to. I can't remember. It's been a while since I played through Justice for All. For a game series that's just about the story, I feel it has to be this sort of linear sort of thing where you have to present this evidence at this time. Because I can't imagine the story being as tightly written if it branched out, like, in all these different ways.
When you were reading testimony, were you the kind of guy that pressed every statement, or did you immediately press something that immediately caught your eye?
No, I like to read as much of the dialogue as possible, so I generally pressed everything.
I did that for the most part, unless I saw something that immediately was like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. I press just to confirm my assumption, and if it ends up adding further testimony, it's like, okay, I know what to do here.
I go back to these games all the time, so I press everything now, but when I was first playing them, if the contradiction was immediately obvious, I'd just sort of jump on it. But when I'm not sure, there's no harm in pressing like 99% of the time. So.
And there is no better sound, or lack of sound, actually, I should say, is that when you present the right piece of evidence on a statement, which cuts the music.
It's just like, objection! And then it's just like, especially if you've been doing the trial and error message, it's just like you finally get the right one and the sound cuts out, because I was like, yes! Finally! Got you!
Death penalty, bitch! Yeah, that is it's such a minuscule thing, but it's something like that just makes, yes, I did it, fucking finally. But it's really especially rewarding if you think that you know what the contradiction or what the bullshit part is, and then you happen to be right on that. It's like, yeah, I'm smart.
Yeah, first try.
Yeah, I love that when you after you cross-examine the testimony, and as the case goes further along, everything just starts to ramp up in terms of stakes and situations. The music reflects on that, and we mentioned the soundtrack earlier. Just the series in general, what I think is really good when it comes to the soundtrack is that it just does so well to set the mood of what the situation is at the moment.
Especially when you get to the themes that only play. Like in there's a theme called Investigation Core, which is like the and that plays whenever you get to the real truth of the case, and it plays a lot in the first game. But because that's where it comes out, but it'll only play like in the last case of all the games past that, except for Dual Destinies, which made me sad because I love that track. So it's just one of those things where these games know exactly when to play the right music to really hammer in a point, especially like the sad reminiscence themes too. It's just like a lot of those only play like once or twice, but they're still some of the most moving pieces in the series.
One thing I really did like is that after you present the right piece of evidence to the statements, when the music cuts off and then you start building up the pressure on the witness, you get the objection music. That's what it's called in every game.
There's a different objection theme in the first 3 games, and after that, the objection themes are just the character's theme song. So
there's the objection theme, and then there's the cornered theme when you pretty much have the witness on the ropes.
Yeah.
The objection theme, I always, especially the first game, the objection theme was one I absolutely loved, and Apollo Justice brought it back, and I was like, oh, that feels good.
My favorite objection theme is actually probably Athena's from Dual Destiny.
I agree. That was actually another piece of music that I really enjoyed.
Okay. So do you want to move on to Justice for All now?
Yeah, the things we don't like about Justice for All, anyway.
Well, yeah, because the things that are good about one game are good in all of the games. Because in Capcom tradition, they're all the same game.
Not as bad as Street Fighter.
Or Mega Man.
Or Mega... Well, no, they've just been neglecting Mega Man for the last few years, so...
By the way, John, are you excited about Ultra Street Fighter 4?
What about Ultra Street Fighter 4, Ryan?
I'm just going to wait until we get a super ultra mega duper mega awesome
Super de-duper Street Fighter 4
HD Turbo Remix.
Arcade
Edition.
4K.
Ultra.
4K.
4K? God, we don't need that. We don't need it.
4K 3D.
What was I thinking, Arcade Edition being the last one?
Dumbass.
Anyway, Justice for All.
If I can say one good thing about Justice for All, it's definitely the most, I'll say, literary of all of them. Because, I'm talking about, things that you can read between the lines and stuff like that. You can do that the most with Justice for All, I feel like. Because, there's stuff like, I could probably write, a thesis on Justice for All. And I'm not going to go into it right now because that would be pretentious and it would take forever. But I feel like it does that very well. And I will say right now that the last case in Justice for All is my favorite case in the series. I love the 4th case of this.
You and a lot of other people have said that.
I assume that means that you don't think that's the case.
It's great. I definitely give it that. It's not my favorite case in the series, but the final case in Justice for All, to me, did a really good job of just keeping me interested because, again, there was always stakes in a lot of cases, but this one had really high stakes, personal stakes. To me, you can't find a better a narrative just to get me into the game's story.
The 4th case in particular also just did a lot of... It's just it also tackles a lot of things that, people might be asking about the questions. It's just why does Phoenix always end up getting innocent clients? And then it's just what would happen if he actually had to defend someone who was guilty? It asks that sort of question. And, it's just... I feel like it handles a lot of things really, really well. I think one of the most devastating moments in the series is when when the judge ends the trial on the first day, and you think that you fucked up, and then you see that one sprite of Phoenix with his head in his hands, and it's just you really feel for him there.
It's he's devastated.
Yeah, he thinks that he let Maya die. It's just you don't know what to do after that. So it's just
Yeah.
But there are other things about Justice for All, less great things.
I jumped into all right. So how far between the gap between Ace Attorney and Justice for All was it for you? Because I started playing Justice for All a week after I played Ace Attorney.
I got Justice for All right after it came out. Not the day of. Hold on, I think it came out early 2007.
The DS version anyway, yeah.
The DS version anyway. Hold on. I need to pull up the Wikipedia article. Yeah, okay. The game came out on the Nintendo DS on January 16th, 2007. So I definitely got it around then. So it was about a year. It was a little bit over a year when I first played it. So I was really pumped for this game, considering how much I loved the first game so much. When I first played it, the stuff that like the Case 3 Turnabout Big Top didn't bother me so much.
Ugh.
Looking back at it, it's definitely the worst case of the original series by far.
Yeah, it's still pretty down there in terms of the entire series as a whole.
It's for one thing, it's just filler. Like,
Yes,
you get
that's what it
one
is.
scene where they try to explain, like, Francisca a little bit and what's going on with Edgeworth, but that could have gone anywhere, I feel like. The rest of it is just, there's no real character development. None of the new characters are really all that interesting.
The overarching story doesn't go anywhere. You're introduced to a fuckload of characters who you just can't stand. The guy with the puppet, the Mo the clown especially. Oh, Mo the clown.
I will say that Acro is one of the better villains. I feel like he's one of the really only sympathetic villains in the entire series. Like, you feel bad for the guy because he has his legs are broken. His brother's in a coma. You feel bad for him.
Yeah, but I don't think the payoff was worth it.
No, the payoff wasn't worth it. He just sort of cries milk. His breakdown is lame.
Oh man, yeah, it was. Justice for All introduces us to Franziska von Karma, and I got really sick of her gimmick quickly. The whip. It's like she whips everything.
She's just angry. She's just like an angry little 4-year-old a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
there are points where they give her character more nuance than that, that's what frustrates me more than anything, is that she could be a really interesting character, but they just don't take the chances where I see them, is more the irritating thing. Because stuff like her relationship with Edgeworth and her motivation for wanting to beat Phoenix. There's potential there, but they just have her call everybody a fool and whip people whenever she gets angry and things like that. It's just, I feel like out of the 3 main prosecutors for the first original trilogy, she's my least favorite, easily.
Yeah, like the most interesting thing that I find happens to her was when she breaks down at the very fucking end of the game, when she's talking to Edgeworth. Because that makes me curious. It's like, okay, then what's the history between these two characters? But we don't get an answer to that.
It's underwhelming. They don't really explore it all that
much. I had a feeling that'd be the case. If they want to wait until the very end of the game to finally give us some sort of interaction that matters, that doesn't involve a whip or calling anybody fools or foolish fools that foolishly think they're not fools.
Foolishly do foolish things.
And on Virginia and the Wimp.
Justice for All introduces us to Pearl Fay.
Pearl, I like Pearl a lot. She's endearing, and she's also, in a lot of ways, she's a kind of a plot device.
Of course.
Yeah, because we need a way to talk to Mia when Maya's, getting kidnapped for the umpteenth time. She's also the one who lets us do the Cyclock thing, which I actually think is that's Justice for All's best improvement to the series, because Cyclops, I think, made investigation a lot more entertaining.
Yeah.
If only because there's some sort of mystery element to it, as opposed to going from place to place and picking up evidence that you need for the trial.
That's exactly why I like it. It makes investigation more intriguing, because now it went from, okay, so what piece of scrap paper can I find that'll help me nail the case, to what's this person's story? What are they hiding? It's also kind of aggravating in a sense where you already asked the person you're talking to about 3 or 4 questions. And then at the 4th one, you get it, the flash, and you get the chains. It's like, oh shit! Like, come on! Like, can you just tell me? At the same time, though, it is a bit bothersome with the Cyclops. It's like, what exactly are you doing?
It's I feel like it's supposed to be taken metaphorically. Like, it's not, like, there aren't actually locks there. Well, kind of. It's just a representation of you proving of you cracking their secret open.
The end all be all and answer is that it's a video game, but at the same, I think about it in terms of story wise. You have to be doing something spiritually to them, because what's to stop them from just saying, no, actually, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. and that's it. That's the NLB case. Go away.
Well, spiritually, it's just sort of like I feel like, it's just a representation. Like, I don't think there's anything like Phoenix obviously isn't in like that black little magic space whenever he uses the Magatama. I think it's just sort of like court scenes where it's just like he's just pressing them hard enough that they just need to either defend their point or spill the beans. It's just one of those suspension of disbelief things that you have to.
Yeah. Again, the whole video game aspect to it. It's simultaneously aggravating, but at the same time satisfying, because when you see the screen flash, the inverted background, you see the chains, and then you get either the 2 to 5. I hate when there's 5 cyclops. It's like, oh, I'm going to be here for a while.
That's one thing that bothered me about Trials and Tribulations is that they throw out 5 cyclops like everywhere during the last case, and it becomes meaningless, as opposed to in Justice for All, where you only see it once, and that's with Madangard's big secret, where you find out, turns out he's a psychopath, and you're like, shit.
To be fair, though, Trials and Tribulation does make fun of that with Larry. You crack the Cyclops, and then here's 5 more, and then Miles is like, no!
Fuck it, I'll just go to court.
I love the Cyclops music, especially. I love that. Love that theme.
I love the orchestrated version of that so much. It's just... It's not necessarily spooky, but it's definitely...
It's calm. I like how calm it is, yes.
Okay, that's a good word to use. The Trials and Tribulations, I guess the music is something to mention, because it's the soundtrack isn't as good as the first game.
I like Trials and Tribulation more than Justice for All.
Soundtrack-wise?
Soundtrack-wise, yeah.
Justice for All, I do feel like the music does set the tone good, because it's a darker soundtrack for what's generally a darker game. But it's just not as memorable as the first or third games, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't. There are a lot of themes that just kind of slip past my head in the second game, except for Justice for All's cornered theme, not the objection theme, the cornered theme. I actually like that one. I actually do like that one. Before we go into Trials and Tribulation, Justice for All is just that it just wasn't as, to me, the best time of Justice for All was the Fae Clan case and the last case. Besides that, I don't know. I didn't like the opening case where Wright loses his memory because the guy clonked him in the head.
That's part of the I could get into the literary aspect of it, because for one thing, it's an excuse to get a tutorial into the game.
Yes, I knew exactly what they were going with the amnesia for in terms of tutorial, but story wise, what were you saying? Like literary sense?
You find out in the first game that Phoenix became a lawyer because he wanted to figure out what the heck was up with Edgeworth. And before the events of Justice for All, Edgeworth supposedly kills himself. So the entire plot of Phoenix's arc in Justice for All, I should say, is him finding out what being a lawyer means to him. So starting the game off with him like not remembering anything about anything is fitting in that sense. Again, this is like English class bullshit that I'm pulling out of my ass here.
Isn't that what you usually do?
Yeah, it is what I usually do.
You overachiever.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Otherwise, it's just like the Richard Wellington isn't really a good villain. He's just sort of meh. I do actually like Winston Payne though. He's like the perfect butt monkey.
Yeah, the butt monkey of the entire fucking franchise.
Yeah.
I thought that was Gumshoe.
No, Payne's even worse.
Yeah.
He loses his fabulous hair in the third game,
which I liked for prequel's sake, because I guess this is a good point to just jump into it. Just for final words and Justice for All, you play it for the final case.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, definitely. Because I feel I've recommended Ace Attorney to a lot of people. They like the first game, they jump to Justice for All, and they sort of moan and groan at once they get to cases 3. And I just have to keep on pressing them to keep on playing, get to the last case.
Wait, that's the one with Godo, right?
The third game is the one with Godo, yes. Yep. In his ridiculous mask.
And the ridiculous giant coffee mug.
Well, no, he has...
he has a regular sized coffee mug. What you don't see is the truck behind him that is filled with coffee.
I wonder who the guy is that keeps on throwing them down his court bench.
Aside from Nick and Edgeworth, I think he's like the most cosplayed one I've seen.
Well, because there's something to cosplay when you're dressing as Godo. You got the white hair and you got the mask, especially. The mask is what you're really looking for when it comes to that.
He's a fun character in his own right, although he's got I feel like I do like other prosecutors better, but I do really enjoy Godo, if only because he is one of he's one of the easily one of the series' most complex characters.
He's also the only one who got anything in the will.
Yeah, his wine cellar and 3 cases of his finest whiskey. Really? And a boot to them.
Yeah, to watch that clip, he is the only one who actually gets anything.
Trials and Tribulation, it was the game that we're not only you get more of Phoenix. It's not really so much still of a Phoenix, right? Game. It's also more of a Mia story.
Yeah, you find out what her deal is for the most part.
Yeah, you flash back to when she first started her job as being a lawyer, and really, if you're not playing the game just for that, because despite Mia being a character that you find yourself attached to in the first game, you really don't get any more development after when she dies.
Well, that's because after that, she's really only called back to help Phoenix get himself out of the holes he's dug.
Yeah.
She's too busy dispensing sagely advice to really get any character development herself, really. So, seeing her as a rookie was interesting.
And to me, that was a good hook. In the beginning of the game, you start the game off as Mia, and I was like, okay, I'm immediately interested. I want to get more out of this character. I want to see what this chick's story is. Why would a spirit medium quit what she was doing earlier to become a lawyer? And I thought Trials and Tribulation started that off right.
Yeah, the first case also has college Phoenix.
The pink sweater and the cold.
No drunk frat boy Phoenix.
No, he's a wimp. But there's a line that I didn't get until my last playthrough just a few months ago, where Phoenix told a lie on the stand, and then Maya says, "Whatever, that P on his chest doesn't stand for Phoenix anyway." And I didn't get that line for years, and then I played it, and it's just like, wait a minute, she's calling him a pussy. It took me forever to figure out what that line was.
That's the little nuances you get on repeated playthroughs.
Yeah. Well, it's also the thing that you get when you're not like. When did Trials and Tribulations came out? Like when? What? 2008.
I have the case right here next to me. He's the back of it.
Hold on, I've got the game. Yeah, it came out. No, it came out 2007. Okay, so I was 14, so I was dumb.
So, Trials and Tribulation, when we're not learning more about Mia's past and her rookie days as being a lawyer, we're also interested because of Godo.
Yeah.
Why is this? Who is this coffee maniac? Why are we just learning about him now? What's his backstory?
The funny thing is that they build Godo up to be the most threatening prosecutor Phoenix has ever faced, and he's also got a perfect loss streak. He loses every single case he prosecutes.
So why does he get hired?
I don't really know, because he just.
Or is he just one of those state-appointed ones?
No, he's Gumshoe says something like he just showed up in the prosecutor's office one day and started ordering people around. So I feel like he just sort of, well, his backstory is that he used to be a defense attorney, but the main villain for the game, Dahlia.
Dahlia.
Oh man.
Dahlia. Hated her. She is.
You hate her in a good way though.
Yeah, and again, that's another Trial and Tribulation's strength is villains. It's like, holy shit, I want this bitch dead. By the time
she is dead.
Well, yeah, and that's great. It's like she gets caught red-handed. She pays the price, the ultimate price. But then she's still part of the fucking plot by like case 4, and like, oh, I really want you to die, and like, and in a spiritual sense too. We're gonna exorcise that son of a bitch, and that's why the final case in Trials and Tribulations is my favorite case, because we get rid of her. The fourth case in Justice for All is still a fantastic case, and I agree that it has a lot of things going for it that deserves its place in people's favorite case in the entire series, if just only the original trilogy. But the final case in Trials and Tribulation, where you finally exorcise that whore out of Maya's body, and you just burst in flames. It's like Castlevania too. You just burst in flames.
It's definitely one of the most impressive breakdowns in the entire series. Like you see, what made me really pissed too, because before the game came out, I was part of the Court Records Phoenix Wright fan community, and in the sort of non-spoiler goofing off section. Where I was trolling around, somebody posted the sprite of her in her ghost form with her hair sort of flowing around like that, and I basically had the entire game spoiled for me by that one image, and I was really goddamn pissed.
I'd imagine. You'd be surprised how little it takes for you to, because in Trials and Tribulation, I think it's, unless I'm mistaken, all the cases are linked.
Basically, all of them. The second and third ones establish some plot points, but they're definitely less connected than the first.
Well, the mask case has nothing to do with anything.
Well, the mask, it basically really does. Well, it introduces Godo, at the very least.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right.
And the third case doesn't. Well, the third case does give character development to Gumshoe, which is, I guess, neat. Oh, that's another reason why I love Trials and Tribulations. They give character development to the fucking judge. It's just like Phoenix, at the end of Trials and Tribulations, Phoenix asks the judge, like, this is kind of nuts. Why, are you alright? And he's just like, well, I kind of like just sort of go with it because I need to look at each case in its own way. And just like, thank you. It's just like the judge is one of my favorite characters in the entire series, just because he's got some of the best lines. He's probably the funniest character overall, I'd say. And so it's just like the fact that they can give even minor characters like that even a little bit of character development is part of what makes the game so great. It's hard to pick a favorite out of the original trilogy, but I usually just say Trials and Tribulations because I feel like it's the perfect ending to the series as a whole. Because most of the plot points get wrapped up. Like you see, like there's at the very least some sort of resolution on Edgeworth and Francisca's deal. Phoenix is sort of becomes his own lawyer. Maya, accepts her destiny. It's a great ending. I feel like it's. I couldn't really imagine it ending any other way.
It does cap off the original trilogy pretty well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other things about Trials and Tribulations though. It's just great, man.
It's a good game. I like it a lot.
Anything else that you really wanted to mention about it? Because I'd really like to put off talking about Apollo Justice.
Well, we have to finish sometime, so move on.
Trials and Tribulation. It's the first game is going to be my favorite of the series.
Yeah.
Well, not series, the original trilogy anyway. But Trials and Tribulation, it's a very close second.
Apollo Justice.
All right, just to get this out there quickly, even though we're not going to handle this game just yet, I skipped Apollo Justice. I skipped Apollo Justice and I skipped Investigations. I went right to Dual Destinies because Dual Destinies in America you can only download on the eShop. It only had a physical release in, I believe, Japan and Europe. I believe.
No, not Europe. Just
Japan.
Just Japan.
Okay. Then around that time, I finished Trials and Tribulation. I was kind of Ace Attorney out at that point. It's like, all right, let me.
Yeah, you need.
I've been marathoning this for a while. Let me just take a breather. So 1 week later. I loaded up the eShop, and I am part of the Nintendo Deluxe Digital Promotion thing, where you pretty much get points back with each digital purchase you make on either the Wii U or the 3DS eShop. So I finally took the time to register all the games I purchased, and I had $40. And since the 3DS and Wii U points are shared, what was $40 on the Wii U was also $40 on the 3DS. So I was rummaging through the 3DS eShop and I saw Dual Destinies and I was like, I'm going to play this eventually anyway. I might as well buy it now. But see, the thing with me, folks, is that when I get a game, I kind of immediately play it.
And you didn't put it down?
Well, no, because I'm going to play it now. I can't. Phoenix Wright is one of those games I feel you can't put down once you start picking up, because otherwise you might have to start the story over again just to make sure you get on everything that's going on.
Yeah, I've spent many nights staying up till 3 a.m. playing Ace Attorney in my bed. It's basically the best way to play the series.
I find myself doing that too. It's also responsible for getting me back in my fucking night schedule. I'm going to play this one case. I'm going to start at 11 o'clock. Okay, I finally finished it. It's 6 in the fucking morning.
Well, I guess never get you too hooked on other visual novels then. Well, I suppose you could play Song of Sai just because that's really, really short, but...
But you played Dual Destinies before Apollo Justice, which is kind of odd. Because part of the reason why I like Dual Destinies so much is because it fixes a lot of the shit from Apollo Justice.
I mentioned because my Twitter account is where I mentioned all the pretty stuff I pretty much did with Phoenix Wright, with the Ace Attorney series in general, and I got a few responses saying that you really should have played Apollo Justice before playing Dual Destinies. And as someone who played Dual Destinies first before playing Apollo Justice, I disagree. I don't think you need to play Apollo Justice to. It has no connection.
Yeah, that's a good thing because a lot of the plot points from Apollo are dumb. But it's more to appreciate Dual Destinies because Dual Destinies gives characters like Apollo some fucking like character, and so it's just like going back to Apollo Justice where Apollo is just a cardboard box is really hard when they finally made him interesting in Dual Destinies.
Yeah, like the only thing I ever questioned when I went right to Dual Destinies is who's Trucy. What's the deal with her? Okay. That's it though. Like I had no other questions in the back of besides why the hell is Phoenix out of a job? But okay, then but let's save that and jump right into the game I skipped, Apollo Justice. This was the first ever DS exclusive game. You had to this wasn't a remake or anything like that. This is the next game in the Ace Attorney series. It's called Ace Attorney 4 in Japan, and you need the DS to play this one. All right, so explain. How did you?
Oh my! It's written terribly. Man. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Okay, first case. I actually like the first case for the most part. I feel like making Kristoff the bad guy for the first case was actually an interesting subversion of stuff because for once it's not the incredibly obvious witness who's the bad guy, which I thought was neat. What ruined it was at the very end when you find out that Phoenix had forged evidence. Because it's obnoxiously out of character. Because, for one thing, forged evidence is what got him out of his lawyer job in the first case. 2, he became a lawyer because he could not believe that his friend, Edgeworth, would forge evidence. And 3, Edgeworth, for a time, Phoenix thought that Edgeworth had committed suicide because of the evidence forging scandal, because Apollo Justice made sure that Rise from the Ashes is considered canon with Emma's appearance. Yeah. So it's just considering Edgeworth and Phoenix's relationship, and just Phoenix in general, he appreciates the law. He follows the rules in that way. So he would never do that. He would never, ever, ever do that, and it was such a character-breaking moment where I wanted to, like Apollo, punch him in the fucking face, which was actually pretty satisfying, because Apollo clocks him one when he finds out.
As soon as Apollo finds out that Phoenix had that card with the bloody print forged, he decks him. And, I can't help but feel the same way, and you brought up points that I didn't really think about, like how... Yeah, I know, it is extremely out of character. Like, at first I thought that it was forged evidence that lost him his job. I'd imagine he'd be using forged evidence himself as payback. Cause it's all like as you find out as you play along Apollo Justice, it's all part of Phoenix's plan. Like the guy is the fucking puppet master the entire fucking game, and in a way, it's kind of annoying.
Is he like Gogami levels of planning things out?
Kinda, yeah.
It's because. He knows what's going on.
He won't tell you.
He won't tell you because that would be that will go against what you are no longer the puppet. You'd be against the puppeteer, and it's annoying because that stretches out the entire fucking game. And it's like, this better be fucking worth it.
I'm gonna get more into this later, but Kristoff, it's the entire plan is to take down Kristoff, and he is one of the lamest villains. I think. But I'll get to that in a minute.
He's the most one note.
Yeah, he definitely... You never really figure out what his
motivation sucks.
He chose a different lawyer than me. I must kill everyone. Jesus, dude. Dahlia? is similar in that way, where like anyone who slighted her or but I believed it more with her because we saw her more. Kristoff just sort of appears in the beginning and at the end, and we're supposed to believe that he's this constant.
It's an incredible letdown when you finally find out what his motivation is.
Another thing that I don't like in general is the writing of the cases. Especially case 2 is actually all right. Case 2 is its own standalone thing. I don't mind it all that much. I still think that Apollo is boring as a boring character in his own game, but you know, whatever. It's a decent enough case. Case 3 can go suck a dick. Fuck Case 3 so goddamn much. It makes no sense. Case 3 is just this logistical nightmare. You want to know why? Because there's a case-breaking contradiction that you can find within the first 15 minutes that you can never bring up ever. The murder weapon in the case is a high-caliber pistol.
Okay, like... hold on. You just yeah. I just remember. I'm sorry. Even though I just completed the game a few days ago, I don't remember much. But you mentioned the revolver. Holy shit! That third case drove me nuts.
What is it? A fucking hand cannon?
A .45 caliber revolver, which they go out of their way to mention multiple times that if you didn't use it properly, an adult can dislocate his shoulder.
The defendant is 13 years old and his arm is fine. He did not do it. The killer is a police detective with firearms training and his arm got blown out. What did you... no.
The murder weapon is a .45 caliber revolver, and again, like I mentioned, they go out of their way to mention that improper use of the gun can fuck you up from the recoil alone, and they still somehow accuse the 13-year-old, supposedly blind but not really blind musician that doesn't speak English very well.
That's another thing I hate about the third case. Machi fucking lies to you for no good reason all the time. First he's blind, then he's not blind, then he can't speak English, and then he can. It's just...
So what is he, Sammy Sosa?
His involvement in what the case is about goes into like trafficking a certain item, a cocoon.
I know. I'm just joking about the fact that conveniently doesn't understand English whenever the situation arises.
It's a lot of hopping around, and it just really the setup for the case is so goddamn ridiculous. It's like, is the law enforcement's blind? There's no way in hell a kid can but nobody brings mention to it. It's like, he's a kid! And you guys mentioned that this revolver is so fucking powerful, you need real good training. And you're accusing the boy? So you're telling me the boy also not only shot the guy with this really powerful gun, but also carried that much bigger man up into that podium, that stage set that can lift up, too? What's the logic here?
The part of the case, too, is just like, our system sucks because the defense has to prove who the other killer is, and no, that's wrong. Other defenses have been presented as viable in the series before, because like in the second case of Justice for All, the Mask to Mask case, alibi was brought up as an acceptable defense, that you wouldn't have to prove that the other killer, someone else did it, you just had to prove that he was somewhere else. Self-defense had been mentioned before as an acceptable defense, you know, and in Dual Destinies, you know, in the fourth case, you prove the defendant not guilty without finding out who the real killer is. So it's just like, that point is just wrong and dumb and stupid, and I think the thing about Apollo Justice is that at the time that it was being made, Japan was talking about potentially going to the jurist system for their trials. And Ace Attorney is, in general, sort of a subtle cultural commentary on how much their legal system sucks ass.
Yeah.
But in Apollo Justice, instead of keeping that, you know, in the background where it's nice if you look at it, you know, beneath the surface where you can see it if you want to, but it's not interrupting anything, it's just pushed in your face, and it's jarring and stupid and dumb, and I hate it.
If there's one thing I can compliment Apollo Justice, I do love its soundtrack. I ended up really liking it. It's not my favorite, but I like it more than Justice for All. There are a lot of tracks I do like over the original trilogy, and you know, I think it's one thing that the game did right was, you know, its soundtrack But yeah, its biggest fault is just the story itself. And to me, the biggest offender is the fourth one, the fourth case. The one thing I ended up really did liking about the fourth case was the flashback trial. Because, one, this is where you really find out that Phoenix Wright is. He's at his most competent here.
He's also kind of arrogant.
But I think at that point in time, he's earned that.
It's just a little bit out of character, and I'm not gonna harp on it too much. It's just like normally he wouldn't be bragging about it so much.
No, but I think it's because it's his. He's up against Clavier, and it's his first case, and he's not being very subtle with being kind of a prick. And I think that annoys Phoenix. It would annoy me too, to be perfectly honest. And I think Phoenix's state of mind and his actions are viable. I see no issue with it.
Gumshoe's appearance also kind of bugged me too, because it's just he's just like, I'm gonna prove you wrong, pal, and it's just sort of like he doesn't really ever act like that. But again, those are just small sort of things. Yeah. He's barely there. The flashback case, my only issue with it is that it was very much a nostalgia grab. Because it's like they play all the old music and they use all the old sprites, and I really think it would have been more effective.
And I think that's why I like it so much, because it makes me want to play the other games.
Yeah, but I feel like it would have been much more effective as a nostalgia grab if they had given Phoenix a nice shiny Apollo Justice sprite instead of his 32-bit one sprite, and had used the nice new instruments instead of the old GBA instruments and stuff like that. I feel like they could have done that to make to make that have an awful lot more impact. Also, the flashback case makes case 4 just makes no fucking sense.
No, case 4 doesn't make any. All right, so the flashback trial ends. It goes to establish what exactly happened during Phoenix's last case, where he accidentally used forged evidence. He didn't know that was forged.
He didn't need to present it though. He could have just not done anything at all. Like, why did he have to present the letter again? It's like, I feel like...
It wasn't the letter, it was the torn page.
The torn page, yeah.
Yeah.
He really didn't... There wasn't really any reason for him to present it at that point.
Well, no, because he noticed that there was a torn page in the diary.
Oh, yeah.
And he was given a torn page by a very young Trucy, which didn't raise any red flags, first off.
Yeah.
And Phoenix he put 2 and 2 together. I have a torn page here. This diary is missing a page. Therefore, the two are related. It's a logical conclusion, but at the same time, he didn't think. He really didn't think, which is kind of aggravating. And then, after it's all said and done, we learn that he gets disbarred because of the forged evidence thing. Now all the pieces start coming together that we've been building up this entire game in what has to be the most eyebrow-raising and confusing method I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Oh, the Mason system. Ugh.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we traveling through time and space to present shit that we got in the future to present in the past to get more of the story?
I'm trying to remember the bullshit that they used to justify this. I think...
Does it make any less sense than using the mandolin to summon evidence?
I think Phoenix's hobo hat had the little button on it that Emma gave him with the video camera.
Yeah, there's a camera inside the hat.
Yeah, and he talked to all of these people. And the Mason system, I think, was like a simulation for how Phoenix put 2 and 2 together over time in a way that made sense to the jury. Maybe. I don't know.
No, because there's one particular case in the past where you're talking to a young, what was her name, Vera, the artist.
The little girl, Vera.
And you have to find out who the client is, and you present Kristoff. But back in the past, you have no reason to think Kristoff has anything to do with that. You learn that information from the future. So what are you going off on in the past when you bring up Kristoff?
The justification they give is that it's just a simulation. It didn't actually happen. But it really does make no sense. There's a list on GameFAQs where they list like every single logistical thing that doesn't make any sense about Case 4. I can't really think of where it is right. I'm gonna go look for it because I think you really do need to read it because it really doesn't make any sense. And man, also I hate all of the characters. Like I hate Zach Romare Zach Gramere.
Zach Gramere is a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Here's the guy that we were trying to defend in the flashback case. Because he's being accused of murdering his old master, who they're all magicians, and after Phoenix presents the forced evidence and everything, he decides to pull a disappearing act because you're not going to find me guilty. He disappears for 7 years, ditching his daughter Trucy, who Phoenix later adopts, and when he comes back, he not only doesn't really apologize for the disappearing act, but decides, you know what, I heard you're a really good poker player. I'm going to fuck up your reputation. By the way, how's Trucy?
Also, he also clocks, doesn't he? He clocks Phoenix over the head with the bottle when he loses.
No. He attacks the girl.
Yeah. Okay, hold on, I found it. The big list of Case 4-4 plot holes. It goes on for like 3 posts. I'm putting it in the the chat now. You can read that at your leisure. It's just, oh man, Case 4-4. I love how they try to make Apollo relevant in it when he's not. Like the Drew Misham's 3 paintings that mean nothing. You do that annoying little mini game with like the rubbing thing where you find out what's underneath the paintings, and you find out, oh wow, he's been drawing paintings about all of Apollo's cases. Why? You never find out. It's never important. And then you just have these 3 paintings sitting in your inventory for the rest of the game, and you're wondering, all right, why? And then Apollo and Trucy are brother and sister for some reason.
Which means nothing.
Because Phoenix doesn't tell them. It just makes me angry, which is part of it. Apollo Justice is the only game in the series to make me like legitimately angry. I have my story gripes with Dual Destinies and with Investigations because they have some dumb writing issues about them too, but none of them made me angry the way Apollo Justice made me angry. And I could go on for like hours if you'd let me, but I assume that we don't want to be here forever.
When I first played the game, I came in with the baggage knowing that people don't really think highly of Apollo Justice. I didn't know the exact reasons, whether or not it was character or just story. Because I was playing along the game, I didn't mind Trucy as a character.
Trucy just bugs me because she has really no personality of her own. She's just she's just there to fill the void that Maya left. And I would have really liked her to have her own sort of thing.
The problem with Apollo is that he has no character.
Which I am really glad that they changed that in Dual Destinies too.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that soon enough.
Now you said you had just to wrap things up for Apollo Justice. You said you had problems with Clavier. Like what is it about?
Clavier. It's the Clavier is, for the first off, really really boring. He's probably the most boring prosecutor out of all of them. It's nice to have one of them not like hate you for once. Yeah. But really, his connection to Kristoff is never really fully explored. His relationship to Phoenix is never really fully explored. I just don't find him all that interesting. And his rock star gimmick I don't find particularly entertaining. But the thing I don't like about him most is that the 4th case, the last trial, the last trial is just him and Kristoff talking the entire time. You present like maybe one piece of evidence. You examine his devil in his hand with we should talk about the perceive mechanic at some point.
There's really not much to talk about. I don't think it's as interesting as the Cyclock.
Yeah, it's just sort of a dumb mechanic because it's just like, oh no, someone is nervous on the witness stand. That doesn't necessarily mean they're lying. It just means they're nervous in a court of law. Who wouldn't be? The last case, you don't do anything. It's just Clavier and Kristoff talking.
Yeah, because Vera at that point's poisoned, so there's no person to cross-examine except for Kristoff. But even then, you're just presenting.
You just read. There's no. Yeah. You don't present any evidence. You don't do any. Apollo just didn't even need to be there, at all. So although that's just a complaint with the game in general, is that Apollo didn't need to be there at all in his own game.
It's all part of Phoenix's plan.
I'm just really glad that he's also such a dick too. Like he always had sort of his like snarky inner monologue, but he kept it in. It's more endearing to have him sort of just think these things instead of say them out loud. He's just sort of a douchebag to Apollo the entire time, and I feel like that takes away from his character a bit. So I'm glad that they sort of reverted him back more to what he was like in the original games for Dual Destinies. You know,
Yeah.
he's more what I thought he would be like as an older Phoenix. Like, you know, he's still got that same sort of like he's still the same, but he's also a lot age has, you know, given him wisdom and things like that.
It made him a bit more cynical too.
It made him, yeah, it did. Like, I don't mind him being more cynical because he lost his job and all that, but I feel like they went too far with it. The next game technically released was Investigations, which you have not finished. So I'm not going to get too deep into plot ones for your plot for that.
Well, I guess just say whether you like it or not.
I like aspects of it. Particularly like the investigating. I feel like it's way investigating and investigations is better.
What's that you do? Investigating an investigation.
Well, the thing in the original games, you got like the first-person view of the room. You can sort of click around the room and talk to people. In Investigations, you're like a character on the screen, and you can walk around and look around. And I feel like it's a much more organic way to do investigating, and I like that part of it a lot. I also think I also love the graphics, which are really well done. The sprites. And it also has one of my favorite soundtracks in the series. I think it's my second favorite overall.
It was one thing I immediately noticed when I'm just only as far as the second case, and the soundtrack immediately was sticking to my head already. I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
I love my favorite theme in the game is the third questioning theme. And the investigations games are the only ones that do that, which give you a third questioning theme. Because like at first, you know, you have the slow questioning theme when things are just starting, and then a faster paced one when things ramp up. But when you get to like when you're really close to nailing the bad guy, and you know, and they're on their last legs, they play the confrontation presto theme, and it's just like do, and I just love that theme because it's just awesome.
Live from New York City, it's Miles Edgeworth.
Yeah, it's just like I like the sort of disco sort of sound to the soundtrack as a whole. My only real issue with Investigations, is that since it's a midquel, it doesn't really impact anything, like at all. And also, I feel like the writing got stupidly convoluted for no good reason. Like they add, I feel like this is the Apollo Justice does this too. Apollo Justice is the point in the series where they start writing contradictions and stupid puzzles first and character motivations second, when it feels a lot more like in the first three games where they wrote the character motivations first and then worked the case around that. So it's I think that's actually at its worst in Dual Destinies. But I don't like it as much as any of the original games. But I still think Dual Destinies is better than Investigations, but it's still all right. It's just sort of there.
Better than Apollo Justice.
Better, yeah. It didn't make me angry, so it's instantly better than Apollo Justice.
So how about that Investigations 2, Ted?
Yeah, can you? I know nothing about it, but can you explain what's going on with Investigations 2?
It's Japan only. I don't think it's ever coming out of Japan officially. The fan translation has, I think, the first two cases done at this point, but I have not played them because I'm waiting for all four. Ace Attorney Investigations 2 English. Okay, yeah, the first two cases are done with the fan translation. I have no idea what the heck is. Those got finished in September. Wow, that was a while ago. I have no idea when they're finishing the second, the third and fourth cases. In Investigations 2, but they better get on that soon because I just want to play the goddamn game. I hear it's supposed to be better than Investigations 1 though, so that's good, I suppose.
Any reason why it never was translated?
I feel like it was they said poor sales numbers for Investigations 1. Although I feel like that's kind of bullshit because it did about as well as any other Ace Attorney game would do, which, you know, is like not great, but it still sold a couple 100,000 units. You know, it did about as well as you could expect it to. I feel like it was just sort of Capcom laziness at that point.
Yeah, maybe a digital release at some point or another.
Seeing as Dual Destinies, as far as I can tell, was a major success. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, Capcom gets off their ass and just, you know, makes it an eShop thing.
Okay.
I mean, I have my physical copy right here, but I can't read it, so...
I'd really love to play this game, but it's in Japanese.
but now we should finish off with the last game, Dual Destinies. If you're in America, you can only get this via the 3DS eShop.
Which is sort of a shame, although I do think it ended up being pretty damn successful, because I think it was Club Nintendo.
It was very successful.
Yeah, it was on Club Nintendo's top 10 3DS games list. Although it's impossible to get any sort of sales numbers because of the digital nature of it, but
Well, I could look at reception anyway.
Yeah, it was received pretty well. The fans seem to like it, so I think that's the most important thing.
And immediately after 6 was announced.
Yeah, 6 was announced, and some other Ace Attorney related project was announced, which is actually being directed by the guy Shu Takumi, who did the original 3 Ace Attorney games and Ghost Trick, which you should also play, John, because I gave it honorary Ace Attorney game status.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that we know basically nothing about either of those, so that hopefully those will come out of Japan. Keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, Ace Attorney 5. So since you played this before you played Apollo, like what was your reaction to him in the game?
Apollo?
Yeah, Apollo. All we basically said about him when we talked about Apollo Justice was he's a cardboard box, but
he's a cardboard box that has no development, no backstory besides the fact that he's the half brother of Trucy.
That's just, but he doesn't ever find that out though, so it might as well just not even be there.
I am your brother's cousin's nephew's lover's former roommate. So what does that make us? Absolutely nothing.
Which was Apollo. All right, so when I first played Dual Destinies and I was introduced to Apollo, I didn't really think anything of him. I didn't get anything from him. He was he was part of the Write Anything agency, and that's it. Like I know when I play Dual Destinies, like all right, I'm skipping Apollo Justice, and I know he's going to be in this game. I'm not going to know who he is or what he's all about, and then you play Apollo Justice and you find out, hey, you don't learn anything about him there either. So it doesn't really matter.
At the very least, they establish his personality in Dual Destinies, where he's sort of the only one he's the only one who takes anything seriously.
Yeah, he's the straight guy.
Basically, yes. That's the best way to put it. He's the straight guy. I feel like he's kind of like Charlie Brown too, where everybody sort of dumps on Apollo.
That was probably just from the fan reaction of the last game.
Yeah. But he just sort of takes it like I feel like he feels like the most. Well, actually, Athena feels the most like Athena and Apollo definitely feel more like newbie lawyers than Phoenix ever did. Like, because aside from his first case, Phoenix kind of had to, since Mia died right after his first case, Phoenix had to sort of had to sort of learn to sink and swim on his own relatively quickly.
Well, not so much. I don't think that really applied until Trials and Tribulation, because
he definitely felt did better on his own early on than either Athena or Apollo did. Certainly.
Yeah,
they feel much more like the newbies than Phoenix did in his first game, which I like a lot. I also think that Apollo and Athena have a lot of great chemistry together too, which I think helps with making her an enjoyable character, because she meshes so well with the rest of the cast.
Yeah, the add-on to this game, Athena Sykes, where I think is like supposed to be a play on Psyche.
Yeah, something like that.
What she does, but I did end up really enjoying her, and again, that was another thing, because again, not to go back into Apollo Justice too many times, but one of the things that they didn't really do with Apollo was give him any sort of backstory whatsoever. He's just here. He's an up-and-coming lawyer, and that's all you're gonna get. Athena, they tell you almost immediately, that this girl has a past. This girl has something going on, because you get flashbacks.
That scene with the blood over her face is the only reason why the game is rated M.
Really?
Yeah, basically. All of the other content is just, the same general stuff that we've been seeing. So it's just like that one incredibly creepy scene with young Athena covered in blood is, I think, the only thing that... It's the only thing that made the game have the M rating, because they don't swear any more than usual. The themes aren't really all that much darker. It's just her covered in blood.
Yeah, child has blood on face, M rating.
Yeah.
It's because we have those flashbacks, and because they set that up so early that you know you want to see how this goes. What's the story behind Athena? And again, if you're Ace Attorney veteran at this point, you know at this point Phoenix retook the bar exam, so he got his badge back, and now you just want to see his adventure continue. Now he has Apollo by his side, and he also has Athena. So now you also want to see how Phoenix evolved as a mentor figure, because you can tell from Apollo Justice alone his attitude, like he's definitely matured in both the negative and the positive way. But now you want to see, now that that's all said and done, Apollo Justice is over. You're a lawyer again. Let's see how you do things nowadays. Now that you're 7 years older.
Did you play the DLC case?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that's actually my favorite one, honestly.
The entire game.
Yeah, in the entire game, which is something I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I feel like the dynamic between the three is very good. Because Phoenix, while when you play as him, is still the same as ever. But he does actually do a good job at being the mentor. And a lot of the I feel like it also feels like he's sort of wrangling a whole bunch of like little kids all the time, which is why a lot of the fan art is just sort of like Phoenix sort of looking beleaguered as Apollo and Trucy and Athena wreck everything. Um, that's actually a good point because the game does a lot more at the beginning to get you hooked than Apollo did. Because I guess
what's besides the court bombing?
Well, yeah, the court bombing. Although Dual Destinies does a thing that sort of bugs me, where the game's told completely out of order. The order for the cases is the second case is first, then the DLC case, then the third case, then the first case, and then the first part of the fourth case, then the first case, then the rest of the fourth case, and then the fifth case. It's just I hate how out of order it. Tell the story in order.
The Tarantino way. It was a bit odd because Trials and Tribulation had flashback cases.
Justice for All kind of did it, but it was just for that one, just for the intro case. Investigations does it too because it does a similar out of order sort of stupidity. Sorry.
Stupidity.
Chim chim tree.
But with Dual Destinies, easily the best things about it is the upgrade to the presentation and the streamlining of certain a lot of aspects. Because the game's 3D models are just gorgeous and really well animated.
They are great to look at. I will admit though, I feel something was lost.
Yeah.
In translation, when it came to the 2D sprites compared to the 3D sprites, like there's something about the expression that Phoenix gets when he's caught off guard, when he's shocked.
Yeah, that
that doesn't look as good in 3D than it did in 2D.
Yeah.
And this is like really minor shit we're talking about here, folks.
Yeah.
But like when he bangs on the desk, because of the 3D nature of it, you have more frames of animation, so it looks a little more fluid. But at the same time, there was something about how instant it was in the 2D game. Where he just slams on the desk. You felt that impact. It's like, bitch, I'm gonna call you out right now. And I don't think that translated well into 3D.
The sprites are one of the most iconic things about the original Ace Attorney games, for sure. Because, there's a reason why there's so many Phoenix Wrong parodies where they put the sprites with all the different stuff. It's because, they're high quality and they just sort of go with everything. I do agree that, something is a little bit lost when you add that extra fluidity. I can't speak today.
The added frames of animation.
Yeah, that's a better word.
Fluidity.
But I still think it's a gorgeous looking game.
That's a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
No. I think obviously the soundtrack is great in Dual Destinies 2. There's a lot of themes, like Apollo's theme. I couldn't stand it in Apollo Justice because it played all the goddamn time. But when they introduced the jazz slow remix that plays during investigation scenes in Dual Destinies, I found myself jamming to that quite often.
Well, the remake they did for the objection version of it
Yeah.
I thought was pretty good because the added guitar I think adds a lot to it.
Yeah, but I really like that. Athena's objection theme is great.
Yes,
The Mood Matrix theme is really good. You know, it's got one of the better soundtracks in the series. Although I don't think it beats it definitely doesn't beat the first game or Investigations in my eyes, but it's still pretty good stuff.
Second favorite court theme in the series. Like to me, the first Ace Attorney's court theme when the trial began was always my favorite, but Dual Destinies court theme I always thought it was great.
If there's one thing about the sound design that I don't like as much though is the voice acting. Oh God, it's awful.
I wouldn't call the voice acting outright terrible, except for Athena.
Athena's Wendy Lee.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
then it's not one of her better performances.
I also hate Edgeworth's voice. I don't know. He sounds way too British.
What did you get from the previous games? Like how Edgeworth sounded?
He sounded confident and sort of smooth.
I always took it he had an accent.
I always took it as the boot to the head people.
Well, he's not British though. He lived Japan, California, Japanifornia. He lived in Japanifornia his entire life, so he should.
Well, maybe Japanifornia has British accents. Fuck it, we already combined California and Japan.
I don't feel like it should have been, as Chip Cheerio, as Mary Poppins British as it is in
Cockney. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, no. I always took it. I don't know. It could be just his appearance. I always took it he had an accent of some sort, and well. So I guess that was the plan because they gave him an accent when he finally started speaking. Better than his Investigations voice. I hate his Eureka sound clip.
Eureka!
Eureka! Yeah, I did it. Oh God.
I'm not too big on Apollo's voice either because the way that the text, the way that he sounded in Apollo Justice, in the way the text described him, he's supposed to have this really like screechy voice. I didn't really get that.
Yeah. Chords of Steel.
Yeah, which is kind of a dumb running gag, but whatever. I didn't really get that from his voice actor an awful lot. Blackwell's voice is okay, but he doesn't really ever get any lines.
Besides, the rest stuff in silence. And
I really like his silence clip because it's just like he doesn't fuck around. Blackwell, I actually really like Blackwell. I think he's one of the better prosecutors, in terms of being like threatening. Because like he manages to do to have more presence than someone like Franziska did. Because all Franziska did was sort of bitch and moan and whip people. Like when Blackwell yells silence, I actually feel like people would shut up and just listen to what he has to say.
Which he does after breaking the shackles. Which it was a running gag. I kind of get stuck. I got sick of around the third time they made that joke. It's like, oh, he broke out of the shackles. I like the bird. Taka, was it?
Yeah, Taka.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's also such a weeaboo. It's hilarious. you get the feeling that he just watched like hours of anime, so he calls everyone dono, and it's just like, do you even know what that word means?
I do.
Well, what does it mean?
It's an honorific used for respected people like samurais and noblemen and such.
Well, he hates everyone, so why would he call them dono?
Also, he clearly doesn't know what it means then.
Yeah, so that's why he's a weeaboo.
Yeah. He has a really big samurai motif going on, and he doesn't actually have a sword, right? He's just cutting air when
he's just motioning like motioning like it. Although I did find the scene where he cuts the little flippy thing off of Phoenix's head really funny.
Which grows back immediately and doesn't really impact anything.
Hey, at least they showed the animation where it came back down, as opposed to someone like when Adrian Andrews just sort of pulls new glasses from behind her back every time she loses new.
I like that though. I thought that was funny.
Where the hell did Matt on Guard get that glass of chocolate milk?
Chocolate milk? What a bitch.
Well, what did you think it was?
I thought it was brandy or scotch.
I thought it was chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk. This murder has class.
This grape juice is amazing.
Well, no, it actually is grape juice.
Apollo Justice, yeah.
Well, no,
God
in
damn it.
the
Four kids.
No, in the Japan version, it's actually grape juice too.
Four kids.
But yeah, I really liked the characters in Dual Destinies. There's a lot of great character interaction. I feel like where the game suffers a bit is the case writing. because it's just like none of the villains have a motive except for the DLC case. It's all just like the first case. It's just like I didn't want to get found out, so I killed her. And the second case, it's oh my, the second case makes no sense.
That was the
That was the
Tenmu,
Terror.
yeah, the mythical thing.
It makes no sense because he wants the treasure inside the thing, so he had to kill the alderman, even though he really didn't. All he had to do was open the door when he even though somebody got in there beforehand. It's just
yeah, it really doesn't. It didn't make any sense because he went to the trouble of drugging alderman so that he fell asleep. Okay, that's all you had to do. He's not going to hear you open the door up. So just remove the seal and get the stuff that's already stolen inside the statue. Yeah, that one I didn't really enjoy that much.
The third case too. It's just like you never really find out. It's just like you don't find out what the bad guy's motive was until after the case is over, which I feel is really disappointing because in a murder mystery, figuring out how it happened isn't really all that interesting a lot of the time. It's just like, the guy has a bullet wound. There's this gun right here. I wonder how he died. Finding out why is always going to be more interesting than finding out how.
Did you perhaps see something? No, I did not see anything. Did you know someone who might have seen something? No, I don't know anyone who's seen something. Perhaps you might know someone who has seen something. No, I have not. This goes on and on and on.
It's just, instead of coming up with good motives, you just have stupid things about, like, moving the body, using a flag, and I just don't feel like any of the cases were written all that well from that standpoint. You never get to figure out any real motives for anyone. It's got this really sort of dumb, over-convoluted feel. And while the Ace Attorney series has always been one to, go into sort of ridiculous shenanigans, it always made sense from a character standpoint, and it didn't do so much that here in Dual Destinies.
Well, the third case, that's the one with the academy, right?
Yeah.
You see the head of the place. I forgot his name already. It's a play on Aristotle. I know it is.
Aristotle means.
And
yeah.
All right. And you sometimes you can get an idea of what the character's like just from the punny name alone. And I immediately suspected him the moment I saw him, not because of the creepy grin, although I did kind of find it funny as time went on. But then they started playing with the ideas like, no, he's like the guy looks odd. He looks like he's a living statue, but he sort of means well until he keeps rubbing in that whole the ends justify the means sort of thing. I was like, all right, I immediately suspected him, and then the game plays with me on that, saying that, no, he's probably not the bad guy. It probably really is one of the three students. And then they just pull a 180 and it's like, oh, no, it is actually Aristotle means. I found it disappointing. I thought, the way Case 3 would end, because one thing the Apollo Justice and this game brings up so much is the dark age of the law.
It's like Dark Age of the Law trademark.
Yeah, and it started when Phoenix got disbarred, and we don't really see a lot of that.
No, someone on the forum, I go to, mentioned that there would be a really easy way for all of these characters to have their sort of motivations, tapped into that, which would make it seem more like it really is the Dark Age of the Law. Like you could have what's his name, LaBelle, Joker cosplayer. You could have him run out of money because he had to pay a lawyer a stupid amount of money because of false charges or something like that. Or instead of just making hair products that he won't sell.
Yeah, he makes hair products for something that only he will use and refuses to sell it. Which dumb. It's dumb.
Yeah. And Aristotle means her and the other teacher, whatever her name is, they could have had an argument about their conflicting views or whatever.
Yeah, and I thought the case would end with Aristotle means learning that the ends justify the means is not the way to go. He wouldn't be he wouldn't be the killer, but he would learn something from that. I thought that's what they were going to go with it, but no, he's the killer. Never mind then.
And then there's the Phantom, who is kind of a letdown.
What do you think of Fulbright?
The internet really seems to love him for some reason. I just miss Gumshoe. There's really a hole left in the series without Gumshoe because he's kind of like the heart and soul of the series in a lot of ways, and he's kind of a poor man's Gumshoe a lot. I felt his justice shtick
Like
wasn't
the
really.
injustice we trust sort of thing.
I
Yeah.
found that kind of annoying, honestly. His
Yeah.
his theme song's nice.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
I just I wasn't really all that torn up when I figured out that he was the Phantom
Yeah.
the entire time.
It was
I
it
did.
was so odd for me because I was looking at Fulbright's character design and I'm paying attention to his personality, his character quirks, emotions, and stuff like that. And I feel like, you know what? If this guy would have, I know the guy has a voice actor, but his voice doesn't really fit with what I thought he would. I always took it that he'd be voiced by Troy Baker, and I immediately thought Pyron from Kid Icarus.
You
It's
did.
like I was like, if he had a voice and he was voiced by Troy Baker, I'd imagine he sounded a hell of a lot like Pyron. He just sounds like he has that sort of voice. And then I find out he's a bad guy. I was like, oh, just like Troy Baker's Pyron. And yeah, like he's the Phantom. I think that's what it
Yeah,
was.
the Phantom.
Yeah.
Ooh, scary.
His motivation was one that I think wasn't defined that well because it involves like the space station and how like different countries are trying to beat each other through like the space race and stuff like that. When I really thought that was it has something to do with the moon rock.
It's like the only evidence to his identity was on the moon rock or something like
It
that.
had like a
So
blood
he
sample.
needed it, but it was brought into space
Yeah.
for some reason, and then it came back or something. Again, that's the sort of overcomplicated writing that I'm talking about. It's just like it's written with stupid contradictions first and character motivations second. If
Yeah,
that makes
because
sense.
I still like I get what the Phantom is. He's a spy. He works for a secret organization that has to do something with like one country wanting one other country to not advance ahead of them in terms of the space race and things like that. I get that, but I'm still left with a lot of questions, like or wondering why aren't we really focusing on this sort of issue and not so much of this quote unquote dark age of the law that really doesn't have any bearing on anything besides a courtroom bombing in the beginning of the game and maybe some things about the third case. But again, it's really just the means to flesh out Athena's story because at one point, she there are certain points in the story where she starts having traumatic thoughts. She was completely
She blacks out.
she blacks out, and you want to find out why. And the fifth case is really meant to go into that. And it gets as bad to the point where she gets like 5 black cyclocks,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Whoa, what the hell?" That was nothing
That was something. That was like the one thing that they explained from Apollo Justice, because
Yeah.
Christoph has those. Which I guess since now we know what they mean, maybe he has some sort of deeper motivation. But I don't really give a shit because Christoph sucks.
It doesn't matter
Uh,
because he's dead, and
well, no, Christoph isn't dead.
he's killed. He'll die. He's dead to
Oh.
me.
She sort of repressed those memories. I liked that aspect of the trial. Like that's part of why I think Athena's a really well developed character because she has her strengths and she has her weaknesses and she displays a full spectrum of emotions too. The Phantom though is really just there because they needed a boogeyman for her backstory though, which is a little bit disappointing, but I can deal with it.
What did you think of the gameplay changes in terms of
I liked most of them except for one thing. The one thing that bothered me about the new gameplay is that whenever you're done with a room, the game would almost always instantly teleport you to wherever you needed to go. Like the screen would fade to black and then fade back wherever you needed to be instead of letting you choose yourself, and it really felt like the game was trying to drag you along when it didn't need to.
Yeah, I took it as a means of just getting a move on.
But it doesn't feel like I'm playing the game.
You're just talking about the automation of it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything else was great. That I loved the little notebook, so that if I turned the
Yes.
game off.
Oh man, that was one thing. That was one of my biggest regrets when I went to Apollo Justice from Dual Destinies. It's like, okay, I'm gonna look at my notebook to see. Oh wait, I don't have that. Fuck. Like,
Yeah, you
What,
take.
the handy dandy notebook?
yeah.
Yeah. It's just like it'll give you a little summary of the case, and it'll tell you the things that you need to do, like present this evidence to this witness, examine this room, so on and so forth. So if you put the game, if you can't play for a week, because you have to go someplace, and you come back to it, you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh crap, what the hell was I doing? Better restart the whole case.
One thing I really did love that Dual Destinies added was, and it really when they added it in this game, I had a thought of, wait, why wasn't this in previous games? Considering the setting of what you do in this game, a courtroom. It isn't like in every case you ever had, there's someone writing down all this shit on a typewriter, or I don't remember the official term for it, but it's like, yeah,
I think it's a stenographer.
I think that was what it is. Yeah, but Dual Destinies adds that, and that allows you to backtrack to dialogue that you've previously had, which is especially helpful in those instances where you're put on the spot where you have to announce or present crucial evidence.
So it's visual novel quick save.
Well, no, it just lets you read a dialogue that you might have skipped by pressing the A button too fast, or
Yeah.
whatever. It allows you to sort of get your bearings
Yeah.
better, which is great. I also like that you can now just warp to wherever you want to go. You don't have to go through, you don't have to go from the office to the police station to the crime scene. You can just jump straight to the crime scene.
I that was another thing I appreciate it. It didn't take that long to travel from place to place in the older games, but having the ability to instantly Ganon your way through other areas was a nice addition that I liked.
One thing that I can't talk about Dual Destinies about without mentioning, how many typos did you find?
I read a list of typos that I didn't notice them immediately.
There's a lot.
I've heard there was a bunch of typos.
It's just so frustrating because the rest of the games are all really, really good about that. And you see one, you can let one slide, maybe two, but there's like 10.
Unless it's an ending.
Oh, the miracle.
The miracle never happened.
Mood shot. But man, there's just so many of them, and it feels like they didn't even run the script through Microsoft Word. It's so bad.
No, they did. They just didn't like the red squiggly lines. They disagreed. I didn't notice too many of them, but I recall reading a list, or I saw like a group, an album of photos where all the typos were listed, and I was like, I really didn't notice all of them, but yeah, that's pretty bad. I've heard complaints stemming from veterans that they didn't like how some things were simplified in terms of, like, you're not punished anymore for guessing things wrong in the psych lock.
The game is really easy, though.
It's the easiest of the series.
I feel like the game does spell out the answer to you way more often than it should. Like, I figured out every single contradiction way before I needed to.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, that might just be because I've played all the other games before this. But again, seeing as this is a story-based game, you're not going to want newbies to jump in from, the fifth game in the series. You're going to want them to play through the whole thing.
I understand the argument that it overly simplifies a few things. At the same time, though, there are a lot of instances in the original trilogy, and especially Apollo Justice, where if it's not your assistant, it's the character himself wondering, wait a minute, I think I have this certain piece of thing that will turn the entire case upside down. Or when they have a revelation, they just leave it as vague as, wait a minute, could it be? Could it be what? You're going to finish that sentence? Or oh, wait, now I got to present something. Well, what? I hate that. I hate being thrown into the spot with no context. It's like, if I present this one piece of evidence that you probably weren't thinking about, it's going to turn the entire case upside down. I was like, well, I could build that up a little better. And I think Dual Destinies did that better.
Yeah, but there has to be some sort of balance between, not showing anything and spelling out the answer for you.
It just annoyed me. When the character were being overly vague, or when the assistant was being like, the assistant, yeah, I figured it out, but you gotta figure it out your fucking self. I was like, oh, you bitch! It's like, there's someone's life on the line, for God's sakes.
I feel like Trucy was the worst about that.
Yeah, true. I was just about to call out Trucy as being the worst with that. I'm not gonna spell out the magician's secret. Well, then this person's gonna die. How about that? But you said that the DLC case was your favorite?
Yeah, it's my favorite.
It's because you cross-examine a whale.
Well, we've already cross-examined animals before. It's actually my favorite because it's got the best villain in the game, like Marlon Rhymes. Well, first off, you rap battle with him. That's just awesome. Um, the other thing is that he's the only villain in the entire game to be given any sort of motive that makes sense. Like it's just like the whale killed his girlfriend. He wants to make him. It's kind of silly, but it's at least a reason. And I also liked the idea that that someone that a villain could actually sort of redeem themselves.
Yeah, it has like the most uplifting ending in the entire series.
Yeah. I liked that aspect too, because maybe the Ace Attorney court system might actually work? Question mark. Because like we see Adrian Andrews come out of jail, and I assume that Iris got out.
Go, Adrian.
Yeah. And I assume Iris got out of jail eventually, but other than that, all of the other guys just get sort of thrown into prison, and we never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that maybe criminals could like rehabilitate themselves or something. I don't know.
The DLC case is pretty much the third case in Justice for All done right, or made more interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of a silly.
Yeah, it's not a circus; it's an aquarium, and I think the characters are better. And yeah, that rap battle at the end. You got when he buffs up, and then he's giving the dissing of Phoenix Wright testimony.
That was probably one of the funniest things I saw in the entire game.
He's just constantly making these body movements, and I was like, okay, this is pretty funny.
I guess the only game left is Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which
that's coming. That's already been out for a while, hasn't it?
And it's been out since 2012 in Japan. I have no clue when it's supposed to come out in the U.S. They've been talking about it more in Europe, although it has been confirmed for a North American release. I just have no idea when the heck it's supposed to come out.
What about Nick's appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom 3?
I suck as him. That's about.
He has the most damaging hyper combo in the game.
Yeah.
When you set it up for it, anyway.
Well, it's also kind of a pain in the ass to set up.
Yeah,
though.
but
that's the point.
But at the largest damage output, it's it pays off if you're good at it anyway. The Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright game it only has a 2014 release date for North America. It's coming out in Europe March 28th, and Australia.
So I'm betting probably June, July-ish for us.
Perhaps. I will get it, even though I'm not a Professor Layton guy.
I hated. Oh,
that's a conversation for another. Or do you want me to bring up robots again?
Robots.
Overall, I can say, I do thank you, Ted, for introducing me to this series. It's just weird because I really did not expect to jump into. I've been familiar with it since 2006, but even then it was on and off. And I think it might have been the commentary we did on the movie that really started it ignited the fuse. And then you sending the first game to me, was what blew everything up. I'm still picking up.
Well, I did that as a thank you for sending the PS3 to me. So.
You still need to play Sonic 06.
I will do that when I have a reason to do that. I'm not playing that for fun, because it won't be fun at all. I'm not like John, Ryan.
Yeah, he's not like me. Hey! No, okay. But, I mean, I now own every game in the series except for Investigations 2, obviously. And
I own Investigations 2.
That kind of doesn't count.
Yeah.
But.
Well, yeah, it doesn't count. You know what, though? I really hate that Dual Destinies is eShop only. I like having physical copies of handheld games, and I got Phoenix 1, I got Ace Attorney 2, 3, Apollo Justice, Investigations, and Dual Destinies inside the system. It's not there in my 3DS pile up, and it annoys me.
I found my Japanese copy of Investigations 2 at PAX East.
Well, if you really wanted to, you could just buy an imported version of 5.
I was thinking of doing that.
That's what I'm probably gonna look for it at PAX East, because I found my Ace Attorney Investigations 2 there, and hopefully I'll find it for cheaper, because it's actually pretty expensive on Amazon.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm just gonna buy a Japanese version of the Ace Attorney 5 just so I can have it in the pile because I'm a stickler for that sort of thing, folks. That's just how I am.
I'll search Play Asia for a quick sec and see if they.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, the price went down. It's only 25 now.
Oh, they might as well just get it then.
When I have nothing else to better to spend on, that's
Yeah,
like,
when the money's right. I have almost a full collection of Phoenix Wright stuff because I have the movie, I have all the games, but physical 5 and late in, and I have all the manga but 2 volumes. So yeah.
Yeah, Gyakuten Saiban 5 on Play Asia's 30.
Okay, so it's cheaper on Amazon. Good
For
to
right
know.
now, anyway. Yeah.
I'll do it when I have nothing else better to spend my money on for that week. So
it'll be a while.
Yeah, a very long time. But I think it's money well spent. And if anything, I can just write it off the list of games that people want me to play. Because I had a lot of positive reaction when I mentioned that I was playing the game on Twitter.
It's a cult classic. People who like it get really enthusiastic about it. So
because there are a bunch of hipster dumbasses, but tish.
He said that.
I'm doing it just about their time.
So any chance you'll play Trauma Center now?
No.
Oh.
Not to put you down or anything. No. Mail me the series. Buy me the first game. Because I'm not going to go out and buy that myself. I have no interest in Trauma Center.
Maybe the commentary will change that.
I doubt it, but we'll see. I had sort of similar thoughts with Ace Attorney. Who knows? But Trauma Center, I'm just nah.